Hey YouTube, this is Piyush and welcome to this Python crash course in which you will learn about the core concepts of Python in an hour. So if you want to revise Python or if you want to learn Python from scratch, then this course will be useful for you. So let's start this course. First of all, to download Python, go to this link which is python.org/downloads. I will put this link in the description below. And it will automatically detect your operating system. If for some reason it doesn't detect your operating system, then you can download this Python for your operating system by clicking on these links. Apart from this, you also have to install Visual Studio Code. This will help us to write our code more clearly. So choose the suitable download button for your operating system, then you are good to go. So to create a Python program in VS Code, click on this button and type the name anything you want. So for example, I will type here hello.py. Now you must have to include this .py extension every time you create a Python program. Now I will press the enter key and it will automatically create this program. Now I will click here to collapse this explorer, and first of all, to print something on Python, you have to type here print. You have to use this print function. Now if you don't know what is function, then don't worry. For now, just understand that to print something on the console, you have to type this print and you have to open and close these curly brackets. And between that, you have to add double quotes, or you can also add single quotes if you want. And type here anything you want. Let's say I will type here hello world. Now let's save this file. Now to run this program, what you can do is, if you are on VS Code, then you have to download an extension named Code Runner. And after downloading that extension, this type of icon will get appeared on your VS Code. And click here. It will automatically run this program. Now you can see that in the console, hello world has appeared here. So similarly, you can print anything you want. So if I type here, my name is Piyush. If I save this, and now if I run this code, you can see that my name is Piyush has appeared here. Now to print numbers, what you can do is, you can type your number between these single quotes. So if I type here 5, and now if I save this, and I will press the up arrow key, and I will press the enter key. By pressing the up arrow key, it will load the previous command. This is command line shortcut. And in the terminal, you can see that 5 has appeared here. Now this 5 is in string. If you don't know what is string, then you can skip this. For now, just understand that in single quotes, if you type something, it will consider as a string. And I can type numbers without single quotes or double quotes. So if I type here 78, let's save this. And if I run this, you can see that 78 has appeared here. Now this 78 is a number. But if I wrap this 78 in single or double quotes, the Python program will consider this as a string. You can type here 78 plus 24. Let's save this file. And if I run this, you can see that 102, which is 78 plus 24, has appeared here. Similarly, you can do subtraction, division, multiplication, etc. Now let's talk about variables. Basically, variables are like container, which are used to store some values. So if I type here name is equals to Piyush, then this value Piyush will get stored in this variable, which is name, and I can print this name. Now let's save this file, and you can see that Piyush has appeared here. Similarly, I can store numbers on this variable. Now I can also do some operations using variable. So for example, if I type here num1 is equals to 4 and num2 is equals to 8, and I will type here num1 plus num2. So here this num1 will be replaced with 4 and this num2 will be replaced with 8, since 4 and 8 are inside this num1 and num2 variable respectively. If I save this file and run this, you can see that 12, which is 8 plus 4, has appeared here. Similarly, I can do multiplication, division, subtraction, etc. Now we have to follow some rules while creating a variable. For example, I can't type here 1 num, so the variable can't start with numbers. The another rule is you cannot use reserved keyword for variable. For example, I can't use while as a variable name because these are reserved keyword. You can search Google for the list of reserved keywords in Python. But I will type here num1 is equals to 4. Now let's talk about data types. So this 4 and this 8 is a number data type, and if I type here name is equals to Python, since this Python text is between these double quotes, this will be considered as a string. And the third data type is boolean. So if I type here knows programming is equals to true. So boolean variables are either true or false. One thing I want to tell is I cannot type here Python without double quotes. So if I remove these double quotes, you can see that my VS Code is telling me that this Python is not defined, and this says that it will result an error. So I have to wrap this Python either with single quotes, double quotes, or triple quotes. So I will type here single quotes. And for boolean variables, they are either true or false. And we have to type boolean variables without single or double quotes. And I can also store floating point digit on this num1. So I can also type here 4.6. Now let's talk about comments. So comments are the lines of code which are ignored by the compiler or interpreter. So in Python, we have to type for hashtag to add a comment. So if I type here, this is a Python crash course. Now if I save this file and if I rerun this Python program, you can see that 12.6 has appeared here, which is num1 plus num2, which is 4.6 plus 8. And you can see that our interpreter has ignored this line. If I remove this hashtag and now if I save this, you can see that our compiler is saying that this will result an error. And if I run this program, you can see that a syntax error has occurred. So if I want to add some notes in the program, then I have to use comments. For example, I can type here comment like this. So if I type here hashtag symbol, then I can type anything in this line. It will get ignored. But if I type something on the new line, it won't get ignored. This type of comment is called single line comment. And I can use triple quotes to add multi-line comments. So I can type here this is a multi-line comment. Now these lines will get ignored by the interpreter. Let's save this file. And this was about data types and comments. Now let's talk about operators. So I will remove these lines. And num1 is equals to, I will type here 2 and num2 is equals to 3. And if I type here num1 plus num2 and if I run this program, you can see that 5, which is 2 plus 3, has appeared here. I can type here subtract. So minus 1 will be appeared because 2 minus 3 is minus 1. And you can see that minus 1 has appeared here. I can type here multiply as well as divide. Now I can also type here double multiplication symbol, which is exponent. So num1 exponent of num2, which is 2 to the power of 3, which is 8. So if I save this file and run this program, you can see that 8 has appeared here. Similarly, I can type here modulo operator, which is percentage symbol. Now this operator will give us the reminder when num1 is divided by num2. So if I save this file and run this program, you can see that 2 has appeared here. Now instead of 2, if I type here 5 and if I type here 4, so if num1 is divided by num2, 1 will be the reminder. If I save this file and if I now run this, you can see that 1 has appeared here. Now let's talk about strings. So if I type here name is equals to Python and I will type here print name. Now what I can do is if I save this file and run this code, you can see that Python has appeared here. Now what I can do is I can slice this string. So to slice this string, I have to use these square brackets. And first of all, I have to type the start index. So I will type here 0. And then I have to type the end index. So I will type here 3. Now in Python programming, index start from 0, which means this p is in 0 index, this y is in the first index, and so on. And this n is in the 5th index. Now if I save this file and run this code, you can see that an error has occurred here. I have to use here colon instead of comma. So I will type here colon. Now let's save this file. And if I now run this code, you can see that pyth has appeared here. So this pi 0, 1, 2, 3 up to the 3rd character has appeared here. Which means I can type here 0 till n and it will return the value starting from 0 to n minus 1. So in this case, it returns name from 0 to 3rd index. Now I will comment this line. And to comment this line, I am pressing Ctrl and / to comment and uncomment. Now I will type here print. And let's explore some string functions. So if I type here name dot upper, it will convert this string to uppercase. So if I save this file and run this code, you can see that this Python is now in uppercase. Similarly, I can also use capitalize. If I save this and run this code, you can see that Python is already capitalized. That's why if I type here small p instead of capital P, and if I save this, now if I run this, you can see that this p is capital. Now to get the length of this string, I can type here len of this string. Let's save this, and if I run this, you can see that this length of this string is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it is correct. Now I can also replace this string. For example, if I type here Python is great, and I can type here name dot replace, and here I have to type the old word. So I will type here great, and in the second argument I have to type the new word. So I will type here best. If I save this file, and now if I print Python, not Python but name, and if I run this code, you can see that nothing has happened. This is because, oh, I also have to store this in the name variable. So I will type here name is equals to, this will return the new string in which this great is replaced with best. So if I now save this and run this code, you can see that Python is best has appeared here. Now what I can do is in this slicing, I can type here 2 to, let's say 4, let's say 5. If I save this, and now if I first of all comment this line, now if I save this and run this code, you can see that this string has sliced from second index to the fourth index, which is 5 minus 1. Now I will comment this, and let's remove this thing, and let's discuss about f strings. So what I will do is I will type here num1 is equals to 5, num2 is equals to 8, and I will type here result is equals to num1 plus num2, and I will type here final string or str is equals to, basically I am using camel case here, which means first of all I will start with small letter, and for each subsequent letter I will type it in capital, and I have misspelled this spelling here. Str is equals to, I will first of all type here double quotes, and I will type here the result is, and what we have to do is to concatenate this string I have to type here plus result. This way I can concatenate these strings. So if I save this and run this code, and it is saying me that the string cannot be concatenated with this integer. I have to change this integer to string. Now to typecast the value, which is to change this integer data type to a string data type, I can use a function called str. So I will type here str, and I will wrap this inside this function. Now this result, which is an integer, is in string because of this str function. Similarly, there are functions like int, bool to typecast values. I will replace this, and now I will print this final str. Now let's save this file and run this code. You can see that this string is now concatenated. What I can do is I can use this str function here. So I will copy this, paste it here, and I will wrap this, and I will remove this str from here. Now if I save this and run this code, you can see that it is also working. Now what I can do is, instead of this thing, I can use f string. So I will comment this and duplicate this line and uncomment this. Now what I can do is I can remove this plus result, and I can directly type result here with this curly brackets. So I will open and close the curly brackets, and I will type here result. But before this I have to type here f to say the Python program that this string is now an f string. Now if I save this and run this code, you can see that it is working perfectly. So I can insert variable or concatenate variables like this. Now let's see how to take input from the user. So to take input from the user, I will first of all remove this line. And to take input from the user, we have to use the input function. So instead of this 5, I will type here input, and I will type here num1 is equals to, copy this line, and I will duplicate this line and remove this num2 variable. I will rename this num1 to num2, and I will type here num2 is equals to. Now whatever I will input in the console will get stored in this num1 variable, and it will ask second time to input another variable. So this input function will take input for num1 variable, and this input function will take input for num2 variable, and it will calculate the result, and it will output this string. So if I now save this file and run this code, it is asking for the value of num1. So I will type here 4, and it is asking me for the value of num2. so I will type here 7. And now if I press the enter key, you can see that 47 has appeared here. Why? Because this input function, so a string of 4 is stored in this num1 and this 7 as a string stored in this num2, and when I calculated the result, I have concatenated these strings num1 and num2. What I have to do is I have to make this string an integer, so I will use the int function. Similarly, I will do this here. Now I have typecast this as an integer. If I save this, and now if I run this code, and if I type here 4 and 7, you can see that 11, which is 4 plus 7, has appeared here, because now it is taking input as a string and I have typecast this string to an integer. Okay, so this was about strings and taking input from user. Now let's talk about list. So I will remove this thing and I will type here my list is equals to, and to make list, what we have to do is we have to use these square brackets, and you can think of list as an array if you are coming from C++ or Java. So I can type here integers, or I can store strings, or I can also store boolean value. I can also store floating point values. Now if I print the my list, if I save this file and if I run this code, you can see that our list has appeared here. Now let's talk about some list functions. So if I type here my list dot reverse, this VS Code is saying that this function returns nothing. That's why it doesn't make any sense to store this in a variable. So if I save this file and run this, you can see that the list is now reversed. Now I can also use insert function. So if I type here insert, now here first of all I have to type the index in which I want to store the value. So I will type here 3, and here I have to type the value. So I will type here 78. If I save this file and run this code, you can see that this 78 has stored in the third index 0, 1, 2, 3. Now I can also use append function. So if I type here append, and here I have to type something to store. So I will type here true. If I save this, this true will be inserted at the end of this list, and I have to type here append. Now let's save this file and run this. You can see that this true has inserted at the end of this list. Now I can also use pop function. So if I type here pop, and here I have to type the index. So if I type here 2, let's save this file and let's run this code. You can see that 0, 1, 2, this string has deleted because I have specified here that delete the item which is in the second index. I can also use the remove function. So if I type here remove, and here I have to type the value which I want to remove. So if I type here false, if I save this and run this, you can see that this false value has removed from this list. Now if I remove this boolean and this string literal, and I will type here some random values like 78. Now if I save this file and I will remove this floating point number, and if I type here mylist.sort, now if I save this and run this file, now you can see that this list is sorted. Now as you know, in list index starts from 0. So first of all I will remove this, and now to access this element, what we have to do is we have to type here my list, and we have to open and close this square bracket, and we have to type the index. So I will type here 0. This 0 index corresponds to this value which is 4. Now I will save this file and run this code. and you can see that 4 has appeared on the terminal. Similarly, I can type here 2, and the second index corresponds to this 78 value, 0, 1 and 2. Let's save this file and run this code. You can see that 78 has appeared here. Now one thing I want to tell you is lists are mutable, which means I can type here my list of 2 is equals to 1. So I can change the list. Here in this case I have changed the second index of the list, and I have used the print statement to print the second index. If I save this file and run this code, you can see that now the value of the second index is 1. Now after list, the second thing is sets. So I will remove this code and I will type here my set is equals to, and to initialize a set we have to use the curly brackets. Now in maths you have learned that sets are the collection of well-defined objects, and in maths you have also learned that set cannot contain duplicate value. So in programming this set cannot contain duplicate values, so I can type here 4, 8, 9 and let's print this set. Let's save this file and I will run this. You can see that 8, 9 and 4 has appeared here. If I type here duplicate value, so if I type here 8, and now if I save this file and run this code, you can see that this 8 has got ignored. Also I cannot change the element of this set. Now let's talk about the sets functions. So I can type here my set dot pop. Now this pop function will remove an arbitrary element from this set and returns that remove element. So if I save this and run this code, you can see that 8 has removed here. Now I can clear this whole set by typing here my set dot clear. You can see that my VS Code is saying that it doesn't return anything. So I will remove this print statement and type here print my set. If I save this and run this code, you can see that this set is empty. Now let's talk about tuple. So to create a tuple, I will first of all type here my tuple is equals to. Now you have to use brackets to create a tuple, and in this brackets what you can do is you can type here values. So I'll type here 7, 8, 9, 8, 5, 56, and if I print my tuple, let's save this file and run this code. You can see that the tuple has printed here. Now the tuple is immutable, which means first of all if I type here my tuple of 0, let's save this file and run this code. So I will get 7 because this 0 index corresponds to this 7 value and I cannot change its value. So if I type here my tuple of 0 is equals to 8, let's save this file and run this code. You can see that it is giving me an error, which means this tuple is immutable and I cannot change its values. Let's talk about the type keyword. So if I remove this and if I type here type and open and close curly brackets, let's save this file and run this code. You can see that it is saying me that the class is of tuple. Now ignore this thing which is class if you don't know about object oriented programming, but you can see here that this is a tuple, and instead of this brackets if I type here square brackets, and I have to remove this. Now if I save this and run this code, it is saying me that this thing is a list. And if I type here some string, let's say if I type here Python, let's save this file and if I run this code, it is saying me it is of class string or str in short. Now let's talk about dictionary. So basically dictionary are the key value pairs if I type here A is equals to, and to create a dictionary we have to use these curly brackets. If you have remembered, then we have used these curly brackets in sets as well. But the difference between sets and dictionary is a collection of key and value pair, whereas a set contains a single value. So I will type here name colon Python, and I will type here comma type programming. If I save this file and if I type here print A, if I save this and run this code, you can see that it is printing the dictionary. If I type here type of A, if I save this and run this code, you can see that it is saying me that this is a class of dictionary, or DICT in short. I will remove this type function, and we will use this dictionary a lot in Django while sending the context dictionary in the templates. By the way, if you want to learn Django, then I have created a 3-hour course on Django on this channel. I will drop the link of that video in the description below, or you can also get that video from the I button. Now to access the items of dictionary, what I can do is I can type here A, and I can open and close these square brackets, and here I have to type the key. So I will type here name. If I save this and run this code, you can see that Python has appeared here. If I type here type and save this, and if I now run this code, you can see that programming has appeared here. This thing is called key, and this is called its value. Now instead of this, what I can do is I can type here a.get, and here I have to type the name of the key. So I will type here name. If I save this and run this code, you can see that it is printing the same thing, which is Python. So it's up to you which syntax you use. Now dictionary cannot contain multiple keys, so I cannot use one more key with the name of type, because I have already declared it here. Now to get all of the keys of a dictionary, I can use a function which is a.keys. If I save this and run this code, you can see the keys here. Similarly, I can get the key value pair by typing here a.items. If I save this and run this code, you can see that it is printing a list of tuples with a key value pair corresponding to a dictionary. Now to update something here, I can type here a.update, and here I have to type the key. So I will type here name, and here I have to type the value or the updated value. So I will type here, let's say Java. Let's save this file, and if I run this, okay, so it is giving me an error. So what I have to do is I have to type here a dictionary. So I will use this curly brackets, and instead of this comma I have to type here colon. Let's save this file, and if I now run this none has appeared here. This is because it doesn't return anything, so it doesn't make any sense to wrap it inside the print function. So I will type here, now I will type here print A. Let's save this, and if I run this, you can see that the name is changed with Java. Now you can see that we can update the dictionary, which means the dictionary is mutable. Now I will remove this. Okay, so now let's talk about if-else conditionals. So if I type here if, and I have to use these brackets, and here I have to give a boolean value. So I will type here a is equals to true. So I have created a variable named a, and I have initialized this true value in this a. And if I type here if a, so if a, and I will type here colon. Now if the value which is inside this is true, then it will be inside this block, and in this block you can see these spaces here. These are called indentation. This is to indicate that we are inside this block. So I will type here print I am true, and I will type here else. I will copy this print statement and paste it here, and instead of this true I will type here false. Let's save this. Now you can understand this if else in simple English language. In English, if this thing is correct, then we'll print this, and else, which means otherwise, we'll print this. Similarly, in programming, if something inside this brackets is true, it will print this line, which is inside this if block, and if that thing is false, it will print this line. In this case, the A is true. I have assigned it here. That's why the Python program will print this line. If I save this and run it here, you can see that I am true is printed here because A is true. And if I type here false, let's save this, and if I run this, you can see that I am false is printed here because the if expects here to be true value, but the value is false. That's why I have landed to this else block, and this else block I have printed that I am false. That's why here is I am false printed. Now what I can do is I will type here age, and I will type here, let's say 24, and I will type here if age is greater than 18, then I will print you are above 18, else I will type you are below 18. Now let's save this. Now the value of age is 24, and 24 is greater than 18, which means this statement is true. That's why the piece of code which is inside this if block will evaluated. So here I have typed you are above 18. So if I run this code, you can see that you are above 18 is printed here. Now if I change this 24 to let's say 12, and if I run this, you can see that you are below 18 has printed here because 12 is not greater than 18. 12 is less than 18. That's why the program is inside this block, and this piece of code has evaluated. Now if I type here age is equals to 18, and if I save this and run this here, you can see that still you are below 18 is printed because 18 is not greater than 18. 18 is equals to 18. So to check multiple conditions, what I can do is I can use else if block. So in Python we call it elif block. I will type here elif age is equals to 18. Then I will copy this print statement, paste it here, and I will type here you are 18 years old. If I save this file, now you can see that 18 is equals to 18. That's why this block will be, that's why this piece of code will be evaluated. So how this work is, it will first of all check this condition. If age is greater than 18, if age is greater than 18, then it will print this line. Else it will check this. If age is double equals to 18, which means if 18 is equals to 18, and this is true, that's why this will print this line. Or else if this condition is also false, it will print this line. If I save this and run this code, you can see that you are 18 years old is printed. Similarly, I can add many elif blocks. So I will type here elif age is equals to 4. I will type you are 4 years old. Let's save this file and run this code. Now the value of age is 18. That's why this piece of code is printed. If I type here 4 instead of 18, now 4 is not greater than 18. That's why this piece of code will not evaluate it. And 4 is also not equals to 18. That's why this piece of code will also ignored. Now 4 is equals to 4. That's why this piece of code will be evaluated. And if I run this, you can see that you are 4 years old has printed here. Similarly, if none of the condition matches true, then it will print this else block. So this was about if else conditionals. I will remove this. Now to understand if-else conditionals more clearly, let's create a mini calculator. So I will type here num1 is equals to, I will take the input from the user and I will type here number1 is equals to, and I will typecast it to an integer. Similarly, I will duplicate this line and instead of num1 I will type here num2. I will also do this here. So we have taken the number 1 and number 2 from the user. Let's use op for operator is equals to, I will type and I will copy this line, paste it here operator. Since the operator could be plus, minus, times and divide, it will be a string. That's why I haven't typecasted it to an integer. Now we'll check that if operator is equals to plus, then what we will do is we will print num1 plus num2. This double equals to will check that this thing is equals to this thing. We can't use single equals to, because if we use single equals to, it is an assignment operator. Single equals to is an assignment operator which we have used here. To check whether something is equals to another thing, we have to use double equals to. So if it's equal to plus, we will print num1 plus num2, and if it's equals to minus, elif operator is equals to minus, we will print num1 minus num2, and I will type here elif operator is equals to multiply, then I will print num1 times num2, and else and elif if the operator is equals to divide, then we print num1 divide num2. Now you can see that if the operator is equals to plus, this condition will be true and this thing will get printed. Or if the operator is not plus, rather it is minus, then num1 minus num2 will get printed. Or if it is multiplication, then num1 multiplied num2 is printed, or else, and so on. And else if the operator is neither plus, minus, times, divide, then we'll print invalid operator. Let's save this file, and if I run this code, it is asking me for num1, so I will type here 45, and num2 let's say 74, and I will type here plus. You can see that 119, which is 74 plus 45, has printed here. If I run this program one more time, if I type here 4, num2 5, and if I type here multiply, 20 is printed here. And I will run this one more time, and number I will type here num2, and I will type here operator is equals to p. You can see that invalid operator is printed here. So this was our mini calculator. Now let's talk about loops. So I will remove this, and basically loops are used to do some repetitive tasks. For example, if I type here a is equals to 7, 8, 12, 98, and this is a list. Now I want to output each element of this list, so I can use a for loop. So I will type for, and I will type here item in a. So we have to use this in keyword, and we have specified for each item in a, I will print the item, and I will remove these brackets. Now let's save this file, and if I run this code, you can see that each item is now printed here in a new line. Similarly, you can name this anything you want. So I will type here for b in a, and I will print b, and for each iteration we'll get a b. If I save this and run this, you can see that the same thing is printed here. I will undo this, and instead of this I can use sets. If I save this and if I run this, you can see that each element of set is also printed here. Now I can only use this for loop with something which I can iterate. For example, list, sets, tuples, etc. Now let's talk about the range function. So if I type here for I in range, and if I type here 1, 10, so in each iteration I will get this I from 1 to 10. If I print I, let's save this file, and if I run this code, you can see that the numbers from 1 to 9 is printed here. Let me explain why. Now in the first iteration, the value of I is 1, and we have printed the I, and 1 has printed here. In the second iteration, the value of I is 2 because I have used this range function, and I can type here 1 to 10, which means in the first iteration I will be 1, in the second iteration I will be 2, and so on. In the last iteration I will be 9, and the 9 is printed here. You can see this 9 here. Now if I want to print a number from 1 to 10, I have to type here 11, because it prints number from this -1, which means 11 minus 1, which is 10. If I save this and run this, you can see that numbers from 1 to 10 has printed here because of this for loop and this range function. And in every iteration, this I increments itself with 1 till this number -1, which is 10 in this case. Now let's talk about while loops. So if I type here a is equals to 4, and if I type here while a greater than 10, print a. So while this condition is true, this a will print here. And if I save this and run this code, you can see that the program is now closed because 4 is not greater than 4, 4 is less than 4. So I have to use this less than symbol here. So if 4 is less than 10, this condition is true. So this line will be printed. Again it will check 4 is less than 10, this thing is true, then this line will be printed. Again it will check that if 4 is less than 10, then this line will be printed. It will break this loop when this thing is false. So if I type here a is equals to a plus 1, here the value of a is 4. It will check if 4 is less than 10, and if 4 is less than 10, this will print a, and it will increment the a to 1. So now the value of a is 5. It will check this 5 is less than 10. This condition is true. So this line will be printed. And the value of a will again increment to 1. It will check 6 is less than 10. And when the value of a is 9, it will check 9 is less than 10. It will print this line. Then the value of a increment to 1. So the value of a will be 10. And it will check that 10 is less than 10. Then this statement will be false. Then the program will terminate this loop. So if I save this file and run this code, you can see that numbers from 4 to 9 has printed here. And if I want to print numbers from 1 to 10, I will type here a is equals to 1, and I will type here less than equals to 10. If I save this and run this file, you can see that numbers from 1 to 10 has printed here. So this was about while loops. Now let's practice some problems on loops to understand loops more clearly. So our first question is, we have to check whether a number is even or odd. First of all, we will get the number from the user. So we type here num is equals to int of input, and I will type here num1 is equals to, or num is equals to. Now to check whether this number is even or odd, what we have to do is, we have to check that if this number when divided by 2 leaves 0 as a remainder, then this number is even, else this number is odd. So a very simple logic, we have to type if num. Now to check the remainder, we have to use this modulo operator. Modulo 2 is equals to 0. We have to print even, else we have to print odd. Let's save this file. When we divide this number by 2, then if the remainder is 0, that means this number is even, else this number is odd. So if I now save this and run this code, and if I type here 4, you can see that 4 is even. Now if I type here 5, you can see that 5 is odd. So very simple problem. Now the second problem is we have to check whether a number is prime or not. So I will comment this line, and I will copy this number, paste it here, and I will uncomment this. Now we have to check that this number is prime or not. So what we can do is, let's say the number is 9. I will first of all divide this number by 2. If the remainder is equals to 0, that means this number is divided by 2. That means 2 completely divides this number. So this number is not a prime. Then if 2 doesn't divide this number, I will check that if 3 divides this number, 3 completely divides 9, leaving remainder 0. So this number is not prime. Let's say the number is 17. We will check that if 2 divides this number completely, no, 2 doesn't divide this number completely. If 3 divides this number, no. 4, no. 5, no. Till then we'll check up to 16. If 16 divides this number, no. That means this number is prime. So we can use for loop or while loop. So I will use here while loop. I will type while, and I will initialize a variable a is equals to 2, and I will check while a is less than num, and I will check that if num modulo a is equals to 0, then I will create a boolean which is prime. Let's say for now this number is prime, so I will type here true. And if I found a number that divides this number completely, then this number is not a prime. So I will type here is prime is equals to false. Then we'll print is prime. Let's save this file, and if I run this, I will type here number is equals to 8. Now I'm stuck in an endless loop because I haven't incremented the value of a. So I have to type here a is equals to a plus 1. I will type here false. Now let's save this file, and I will cut this and rerun this. I will type here number is equals to 16. False, because it is not a prime number. If I type here number is equals to 17, then true, it is a prime. So very simple logic. Now another question is we have to print this pattern. Now in this channel I have shown you how to print this pattern using C++, but I have also shown you the logic to print this pattern. So you can understand the logic from that video, and then you can come back and code that in Python. So I will leave this up to you. Okay, so now let's talk about break and continue statement. So if I type here my list is equals to, and I will put some random elements here. Now if I type here for item in my list print item. Now if I save this and run this code, you can see that all of the items of this list are printed here. Now if I type here if the value of item is equals to, let's say 5, then break this loop. Now if I save this, now if I run this, 2 and 7 are printed here because it have first of all checked that if this value equals to 5, no, it is not equals to 5, then it will print this item. It will check for this 7, it will check for this value which is 7 is equals to 5, and 7 is not equals to 5, that's why it will print this. Now it will check this, if 5 is equals to 5, yes, 5 is equals to 5, and it will completely break this loop. If I type here print outside the loop, If I save this and run this code, you can see that if the value of item is equals to 5, the loop has been breaked because of this break statement. Now if instead of break, if I type here continue, if I save this and run this code, you can see that all the values except 5 are printed here because it have checked that if this value equals to 5, yes, this value is equals to 5. So the Python program has skipped this iteration of the loop and have gone to the next iteration. So this was about break and continue. Now let's solve the question, which is prime or not. So we have previously solved this question, but now we are going to make this solution more effective. So I will type here number is equals to int of input, enter your number, and I'll type here for I in range 2 to n, and I will check that if num modulo I is equals to 0, then is prime is equals to false, else is prime is equals to true. And I will print this is prime. Now let's save this, and if I run this code, I have to type here num. Let's save this and rerun this code. It is asking for a number, so I will type here 5, and 5 is a prime number. If I type here 17, then it is also a prime number. If I type here 9, then it is not a prime number. Now if I have checked that a number divides this num completely, then why should I check another number? So I can type here break. So if I found a number which completely divides this number which a user has given here, then we will change this is prime variable to false and we will break this loop. Now if I save this and run this code one more time, if I type here 17, and you can see that it is working. Okay, so now let's talk about functions. So functions are very useful to implement DRY principle, which stands for do not repeat yourself. So to create a function, we have to use this def keyword. I will type here def, and I will type here myfunc, and we have to open and close this brackets, and here I will type print this is my function. Now to call this function, what we have to do is we have to type here myfunc, which is the name of the function, and we have to open and close these brackets. Now if I save this and run this code, you can see that this is my function has printed here. Now if instead of printing on the console, if this function returns something, for example if I type here return, this is my function. Now this function returns this string, which is this is my function. So we have to store this in a variable. So I will type here my_var is equals to this, and I will type here print my_var. Now this thing will be replaced with this string value because this function returns this string. If I save this and run this code, you can see that this is my function has printed here, but now we have stored this thing in a variable. Now a function could take arguments. For example, if I type here def add numbers, and I will type here num1 comma num2, and we will return num1 plus num2. If I type here add numbers, and for num1 I will type here 4, and for num2 I will type here 8. If I save this and run this code, you can see that 12, which is 8 plus 4, have printed here because this function takes two arguments and we have provided these two arguments while calling this function. Similarly, a function could take many arguments. For example, I can type here num3 as well as num4. We have to separate these arguments with this comma. Or this function could also take only one argument. For example, if I type here square number, and I will return num1 multiplied by num1. And here, instead of add numbers, I will type here square numbers, and I will type here 4. If I save this and if I run this code, you can see that 16 is printed here, which is 4 into 4. That's it for this course. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel, then do click the subscribe button. Also like this video and give us your feedback on the comment section.